on the line of the church. And this morning it will be on God's masterpiece. And then just a quick recap from the week. The first week we saw that the church is God's eternal purpose. Second week we saw that the church is the body of Christ, the fullness of God. And then last week we saw that the church is the house, the dwelling place of God. And this week we'll see that God's church is actually his masterpiece. And a verse from last week, it says from Isaiah 66:1, "Thus says Jehovah, heaven is my throne, and the earth is a footstool for my feet. Where then is the house that you will build for me, and where is the place of my rest?" So actually, in this verse, the concern and the question is actually the house. It's not with the heaven or the earth. So actually, in the context of this verse, we can say that God's masterpiece is his house. It's concerned with his dwelling place. So this was a verse from last week. And then from Psalms 19:1, it says that the heaven declares the glory of God, and the expanse proclaims the works of his hands. And then Psalm 139:13-14 says, "For it was you who formed my inward parts. You wove me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am awesomely and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful."
Amen.
So actually, a lot of people they say that the heaven or the sky is a masterpiece. And even some say that they can say that the earth is a masterpiece. And even if we look at ourselves, we can say that our body, the way it operates and how it sustains us, is a masterpiece. Even many, their life is to study these things. They study the earth. Their career is to study the sky, the astronomy.
Yeah.
Even people, they give their life in research of the body, the human body, and all its different parts. But even though that God created the heavens, the earth, and even man, God does not consider these his masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, God considers the church as the body of Christ as his masterpiece.
Amen.
And this is seen in Ephesians 2:10. It says, "We are his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand in order that we would walk in them." So actually, this "we" is actually us. In the past weeks, we saw that the church is the composition of all the believers. So actually, we who are the believers are God's masterpiece. And this word masterpiece in Greek is a poema, which is where we get the word poem in English. And actually, a poem, we can say, is a piece of work that expresses its maker or author, and it's his wisdom and design. Even it says that writers, composers, and artists are always trying to achieve a masterpiece, an outstanding work, a crowning achievement. And actually, the church in this context is God's masterpiece.
Amen.
And a lot of times we might think, the word poem, we might think to be considered a poem is a poetic writing. But actually, anything that expresses the maker's wisdom and design is a poem. Amen. So actually, we, the church, are the masterpiece of God, expressing God's infinite wisdom and divine design.
Yeah.
Amen.
And actually, the church, it can't be improved and it cannot be imitated.
Amen.
Amen.
And then in 2 Corinthians 5:17, actually we're considered the new creation. And then in Ephesians 2:15, the church is considered the new man. So actually we can say that the church as God's masterpiece is a new item in the entire universe. And we can say that this is God's new creation or new invention. And actually the church is God's masterpiece and is God's invention and is not man's invention. Because actually man does not have the capacity or capability to invent something as divine and mystical as the church.
Wow.
So actually we have all been saved by God's grace to be God's masterpiece, the church, And the reason that this is a masterpiece that can't be imitated, and even there's nothing that in the world that is like the church. So if someone were to invent, like, let's say if you were to invent a wheel, and then someone else were to invent a wheel, and you could say that these two inventions are similar or they're alike, but actually the church, there's nothing that is as like the church.
Right.
And the reason for this is the church was something that was planned in eternity past, and actually is being carried out in time.
Yeah.
It'll consummate in eternity future. So actually, the church is created through Christ. Christ became a man. He lived the perfect life as a God-man, and eventually was crucified and resurrected. And through Christ's resurrection, the church was produced. So actually, there's no man who can produce the church or make the church. There's something entirely divine and mystical, and it's all together in the Spirit.
Amen.
So actually, God's masterpiece is the mingling of God and man that, and a result, produces the church.
Amen.
So I think my burden this morning is that we can walk away from this word and proclaim that we are God's masterpiece.
Amen.
Hallelujah. We're God's
Amen.
masterpiece.
Amen.
Amen.
And then this morning we're going to have a short reading, and we're just going to stay together in this large group. And let's all just take one line, since it's pretty short, and then whoever feels to read, just feel free to jump in and read a line. And I can start. So this is a portion on the church as God's masterpiece. Ephesians 2:10 says, we are his workmanship.
The Greek word for workmanship, poema, can also be translated masterpiece or poem.
It conveys the thought of a piece of work that expresses its